Hello everybody, this is Reaper here with Triumphal Gaming, and today we're bringing you another League of Legends guide on Nasus, the Curator of the Sands. This is going to be a basic guide for the tank build for the top lane. Um, we're going to be going over his abilities, his masteries, his runes, and his item build. And before we get into any of that, there's a couple of things we need to hit on with Nasus. Very importantly, his beginning of the game laning phase is not very good at all. You're going to get pushed around, you're going to get bullied because he doesn't have a lot of good pokes, or rather a poke that doesn't drain all of his mana. You're not going to be able to harass really. Your main focus is going to be on farming your Q, your siphoning strike, and that's going to be basically your final hit on your minion. Your CS is going to be with the siphoning strike instead of just a standard basic attack. You're going to want to farm this up. For each standard minion you kill, it's a stack of 3 that you get. For each larger minion, like the cannons or the inhibitor minions, the large minions, and then of course your epic monsters in the jungle and your champions that you kill with siphoning strike will give you a stack of 6. So you're wanting to build this queue up as much as you can in the beginning of the game, because it's going to make you hell to deal with for the enemy team if you have built this up. I've gotten in the upwards of the 600s, close to 700 a couple times playing with Nasus, and I've heard and I've seen of some of the guys getting in the upwards of 900 with the siphoning strike, and that's just an incredible amount of damage, and that adds on top of its ability damage and your basic attack, and so your damage, you can be doing around 1,000 damage plus for each Q ability you use on an enemy champion. You talk about an ADC that's taking him out so quickly. The cooldown on siphoning strike once you've maxed it out is slim to none, hardly. I mean, you can almost spam it, and you can just do an incredible amount of damage without farming the Q. Though you're not going to be able to do a whole lot. It's going to be extremely difficult to be a good participant in the team fights in the end game. If you can't farm your Q, the best thing you're going to be able to do is basically just get in the way and be the tank, so you can try to soak up as much damage as you can and wither enemies when they're running away. But we're going to get into the abilities really quick, so let's go over that. Alright, so in his abilities, let's start with his passive. This is another thing I meant to bring up, was his Soul Eater. Nasus drains his foe's spiritual energy, giving him bonus lifesteal. At level 13, this is a 20% lifesteal for each basic attack. Of course, this is the attack damage that it bases the percentage off of. So you can build around your masteries and your runes that we'll talk about later around some lifesteal to help out with that. But that's just a really good bonus for when you are getting in the thicket of the fight and everything. Your basic attacks are going to give you some lifesteal. The siphoning strike, this is what we talked about, the Q move. Nasus strikes his foe, dealing damage and increasing the power of his future siphoning strikes if he slays the target. So for each kill, you're going to get stacks. And of course with the larger minions, you'll get 6 instead of 3 with the smaller minions. Wither, this is another important aspect of Nasus. You're building tanky with him, so you're wanting to be able to soak up as much damage as possible and be able to use your Q on that enemy as much as possible. Your Wither will keep the enemy from getting away, or if you're trying to run, you can turn around and hit that Wither really quick, and what it does is over time, over the duration of the move, it slows them down more and more and more with their movement speed and their attack speed. And when it's maxed out, it drains their speed so much that you can basically run past them with no problem if you wanted to do that. Of course, you're not going to. Now, the Spirit Fire, this is one of his, I guess it's kind of a poking move. It's an AoE effect, but it uses so much mana, so you really don't want to use it a whole lot in the beginning of the game. And I'll go over the skill sequence in a minute, but that's going to be something that you just put a point in for a while until you get the other ones maxed out. Nasus unleashes a spirit flame at a target location, dealing damage and reducing the armor of enemies who stand in it. That's probably the biggest thing about it, is it reduces the armor of the enemies in it. So when you're initiating an attack in a fight and you're jumping in there, you might throw that down really quick to reduce their armor to help out with your siphoning strike, so they don't mitigate so much of the damage from it with their armor. And it has a nice initial damage, but not the AoE, the overtime, the dot on it isn't that great against champions. Fury of the Sands. Nasus unleashes a mighty sandstorm that batters nearby enemies. While the storm rages, he gains increased health, attack range, and drains nearby enemies' max health, converting it into bonus damage for the duration. So he gets a storm surrounding him, basically, that does damage to any enemy nearby him. And it greatly increases his health. You can be further away from him than do your melee attacks. And you're going to basically do a percentage of their damage is going to be added to the damage that the storm is already doing to them when they're standing near you. So this is a great ultimate to use in your team fights. It's going to do an incredible amount of damage, especially if multiple champions are around you. And you're also going to be able to hit them with a Q. The Siphoning Strike, you're just going to be a monster in the end game. Again, you have to farm the Q. Otherwise, the end game is going to be extremely hard for you to be able to be a significant participant in it besides soaking up damage. Alright, let's go ahead and get over into his masteries. Alright, so in his masteries, as you see, we have 18 points in defense and 12 points in utility. We're going to go through these pretty quick. You can read more about them on your mastery page, or you can pause the screen to read them, and I'm going to go over them really quickly with you. Block, we have 2 points. Unyielding, 1 point. Recovery, 1 point. Veteran Scars maxed out at 3 points. Juggernaut, 1 point. Oppression, 1 point. Hardiness, 3 points. Swiftness, we have 1 point. Reinforced Armor, we've got the 1 point. And Legendary Guardian, we only have 2 points. I've tried to utilize this the best way I can with getting the most necessary items. So I have some points left over to put in utility for Nasus. And in utility, we have Fleet of Foot to give you increased mobility to help get you away from some of the skill shots from the harassment from those enemy champions in the top lane. Phase Walker, Summoner's Insight, we have 3 points to reduce the cooldown by 10% of your summoner spells. That's your, we'll go over this really quickly. I didn't in the beginning. Teleport is probably going to be one of your main spells that you pretty much always use with Nasus, so you can jump around, or any top lane champion, so you can jump around from lane to lane and help your teammates out that way. And then you can, select Ignite or Ghost maybe as your second one. You can also select Flash. You can't really go wrong with Flash, but Ghost will help you get around faster. And Flash, you use it once and it's done. At least with Ghost, you have some choices that you can make on that. The only thing is you can't jump over walls with it. And we've got 1 point in Alchemist, 1 point in Culinary Master. These are your pots. This is going to increase the duration, so you'll get more health and mana the longer the pot lasts, and this is going to give you instant additional health and mana upon using a pot. And then the Vampirism is going to give you increased lifesteal, which is going to stack on top of his passive. Now you can take some of those points out and you can put them in offense and maybe a couple more points in defense if you're wanting to go more AD on that, but I would recommend trying to use a little bit of utility with Nasus, because your attack damage, your main thing is going to be your Q ability. So let's go ahead and jump over into the items. Alright, so in his runes, as you can see in the quintessence, we have the greater quintessence of lifesteal, the 1.5% lifesteal per quintessence. That's going to stack on top of his passive. The marks, we're going to go with the scaling attack damage. Reason being, it's going to help you out at the end game. You're not going to be harassing anybody or bullying anybody in the beginning of the lane phase part of the game. So you're going to want something that's going to pack more of a punch at the end game instead of the flat rate attack damage. The Seal of Armor, we're going to go with the Greater Seal of Armor, plus 1 armor, and the Greater Glyph of Magic Resist, plus 0.134 Magic Resist. And the reason we're going to go with a flat on these instead of the scaling is because you're going to need as much initial armor and Magic Resist to help with your survivability in the laning phase part of the game, the beginning of the game where Nasus has it rough. It's pretty tough. You gotta be pretty passive, and you really are only farming. So let's go ahead and jump over into his items really quick. Alright, now in his items, we are going to be going tanky with Nasus. You're pretty much going to go full on tank. Now you're going to have to decide whether to go with AP or AD or a balance depending on how the enemy team is building and how your enemy champion, that your rival that you're going against in the top lane, is building. And I've got a couple of different things set up for against AP and AD in here, and we're going to talk about some of the balancing and everything of that nature. Your starting items, you're going to go with the Doran Shield. It gives you increased health and health regeneration, and then it also blocks more incoming damage from the basic attacks from enemy champions. And of course, you're going to get your health pot. You're going to only get one in the beginning, but you're going to get a few of these in the beginning of the game. After you get, I don't know, about past probably 15 to 20 minutes, you're probably not going to be getting any more of these. But in the beginning, utilize them. Get some health pots. It's going to help you out a lot, especially with Nasus in the laning phase of the game. And I generally go with the warding totem. You can choose some of the other trinkets, but the warding totem is probably the easiest one to use. You know, you pop it in the river to, you know, watch out for ganks. Early game versus AD. These are just a couple items that you'll later build into something else. Well, not the boots, of course, but the other ones. The Ninja Tabby, if you're going against an AD champion up top and the enemy team has primarily a lot of AD and not really a whole lot of CC, tenacity moves to slow everybody down or stun them, then you'll go with the Ninja Tabby to increase your armor and increase some incoming damage from the basic attacks of the AD champions. Then you have the Giant's Belt, which is going to give you increased health, and then of course it'll build into bigger items, quite a few bigger items in the end game. Your Glacial Shroud, going to give you increased mana and armor, and it's going to give you a cooldown reduction. Now, if you're going against an AP champion up top, your Kindle Gem, it doesn't give you any magic resist, but it'll build into some of the magic resist items. But it gives you increased health and cooldown reduction in the beginning of the game. Mercury's Treads, this is if you're going against an AP champion up top, or the enemy team has a lot of AP champions and they have a lot of CC. This is going to help you with your magic resistance, some tenacity to reduce the duration of stuns and slows and stuff of that nature. Your Spectre's Cowl is going to give you increased magic resistant health, and also it's going to give you increased health regeneration for a few seconds after taking damage from an enemy champion. And of course it builds into some bigger items later. The Ruby Crystal just gives you increased health. It's pretty cheap if you die early on and you've got some money to spend. You can use this. It generally builds into some of the AP items later on. Your in-game balanced, some of the balanced items, just go between armor and magic resist. The Iceborne Gauntlet is going to give you increased mana, armor, ability power, and cooldown reduction. But after using an ability, the next basic attack deals bonus physical damage equal to 125% of base attack damage to enemies near the target area, and creates a field around the target for 2 seconds that slows enemy movement speed. So you have your Wither to catch up to them, and then once you use your Siphoning Strike, your next basic attack is going to do increased damage and slow them even more. So this is going to keep you in the fight so they can't get away. Sunfire Cape, this is increased armor and health, but it also does increase damage to enemy champions or minions nearby you each second. It's going to deal 25 damage plus 1 damage per your champion level. The Randuin's Omen, this is going to be one that you look at if they have a lot of the ADCs getting fed really big, or they have a lot of AD. This is going to decrease the attack speed of enemy champions that as they are attacking you. It's also going to give you increased health and armor, and if you activate it, it slows the movement speed of nearby enemy units by 35% for 2 seconds. So that also can help you catch up to them if they're starting to get away from you, or it can slow them down while you're trying to get away. So with all of these, Nasus can just keep enemy champions under control with the slows. Warmog's Armor, I threw this one on there because it gives you increased health. As a tank, if you're pretty much going one way or the other, if you're going full AP or full AD, you can throw this on there because it's just going to give you a big boost in health. But if you're having to balance it out, should have put it in the balance, but if you're having to balance it out, you might want to put something else, maybe some armor or another AP item in this instead of Warmog's Armor. But this gives you a large amount of health. We've got Spirit Visage. It's going to give you increased health, magic resist, a significant amount of health regen, and a cooldown reduction. It's also going to increase your self-healing, your health regen, your lifesteal effects by 20%. So this is going to help Nasus out with his passive. And then your Banshee's Veil, it's going to give you health and magic resist, but it's also going to grant you a shield that'll block any ability, any incoming ability it'll block. But you'll have to watch, because if some of the enemy champions know that you have it, they're going to hit you with a small spell to knock that shield down, and then hit you with a larger ability. Alright, now in your in-game situational, I have the Locket of the Iron Solari, and this is going to give you health, magic resistance, and cooldown reduction. This is basically a team item. It's going to increase some of the magic resist and health regen of your allies near you. It's also going to give them a shield for about, if you activate it, it's going to give them a shield for about 5 seconds. A small shield, but still a shield. So it's going to help out with the team. This also is going to help out with the team. This is going to reduce the attack speed of nearby enemy champions by 15%. So if you have a lot of AD and you're wanting to build more armor, then you're going to want to get the Frozen Heart. You being the tank, either you or the support is going to be getting the Frozen Heart. Only one person needs to get it on the team, really. Thorn Mail. If this is another one, if you're going to have a lot of AD champions or ADC champions and they're being fed like crazy, then you're going to want to get some Thorn Mail. It's going to give you a significant amount of armor, but 30% of your incoming damage from basic attacks is going to be dealt right back to the enemy champion. Zeke's Herald, this is another one of those that's going to help the team out. It's going to give you increased health and cooldown reduction, but it's going to grant the allied champions plus 10% lifesteal, and let's get over here, and plus 20 attack damage. So that's just an aura, that's not an active, that's a passive on it. So it's going to help your team out, these two items. That's up to you if you want to use those. On that, I just threw those in there for you. Odin's Veil is going to give you increased health and mana, and it's going to give you magic resist. I don't hear about this one a lot, but I put this one in here because its passive is it reduces and stores 10% of magic damage received. And you can activate it later to deal 200 plus the stored magic damage at a max of 400 magic damage to nearby enemy units. So could you imagine, as the tank, you've got your Q farmed up, you're doing about 600 to 800 damage on the stacks, and then you have an active another active item that you can do 200 damage plus possibly 400 more damage, and you can pretty much knock anybody down almost immediately with that. So you might play around with that. Your damage items, you're really going to stay away from them, but if you're wanting to use them, say you're getting fed in the top lane, you might go ahead and pick up an extra damage item, but you're going to want to get something that's going to help utilize your lifesteal. And you have the Bloodthirster, the Ravenous Hydra, which does AoE along with a good amount of attack damage and gives you health regen and gives you lifesteal. That's pretty much one of the better items to get on this. And then you have the Blade of the Ruined King. The biggest deal about it is its active deals 10% of the target champion's maximum health and heals you for that amount. So it's going to give you increased attack damage, attack speed, and lifesteal, and it's going to do a really big active like that. So those are some of the items to look at on that. And a lot of those are situational, so let's go ahead and jump over into the gameplay footage. Alright guys, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this guide. Just remember with Nasus that you have to farm his Q. If you don't farm his Q, you're almost up shit creek without a paddle. That's the most important thing. Don't worry about being bullied a little bit by the enemy champions. Don't worry about trying to bully them either. You don't really want to waste your time harassing them, because most likely you aren't going to kill them and you're just going to end up dead in the end, and you're going to miss out on a lot of time of being able to farm your Q. That's going to be the hugest thing, is in the in-game. Nasus is hell to deal with if he has farmed his Q up. Alright, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel. We have plenty of guides out right now, so go ahead and check them out. And we're going to have plenty more guides coming out in the near future. Alright guys, thank y'all. We'll see y'all next time.